What if one newspaper story, printed more than 100 years ago, described a discovery so incredible that people are still arguing about it today? What if an explorer claimed he had found a hidden underground city inside one of America's greatest natural wonders? And what if the evidence behind that story seemed to disappear almost as quickly as it appeared? For more than a century, this mystery has refused to fade away. Some people believe it was one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever reported. Others believe it was nothing more than a newspaper story that grew into a legend. But one question has never gone away. Why has this story continued to capture the imagination of so many people? Today, we are going back to where it all began. We will look at the original newspaper report, the man at the center of the story, and the questions that historians still cannot completely answer. Along the way, we will separate what is documented from what remains uncertain, because sometimes the greatest mysteries are not about what we know, they are about what we still cannot explain. Our journey begins in the vast landscape of northern Arizona. Long before millions of tourists visited every year, the Grand Canyon was already known as one of the most breathtaking places on Earth. Its towering cliffs, deep valleys, and winding river told a story written over millions of years. Every layer of rock revealed another chapter of the planet's past. Yet for many explorers, the canyon held another kind of mystery. Its steep walls contained thousands of caves, narrow passages, and hidden openings that were almost impossible to reach. Some had never been carefully explored. Others were known only to local Native American communities who had lived near the canyon for countless generations and respected it as a place of deep cultural and spiritual importance. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the American Southwest attracted explorers, scientists, photographers, and adventurers from across the country. Railroads were expanding, new maps were being drawn, and newspapers eagerly published stories about remarkable discoveries from the frontier. It was an exciting time. Every month seemed to bring news of another ancient ruin, another fossil, or another forgotten settlement. Americans believed there were still many secrets waiting to be uncovered. Then, in April of 1909, readers opened their morning newspaper and saw a headline unlike anything they had ever read. The article appeared in the Arizona Gazette. It described an explorer named G.E. Kinkaid, who reportedly claimed to have discovered an enormous underground complex hidden inside the Grand Canyon. According to the newspaper, the discovery included large chambers, carefully carved passages, strange symbols and artifacts that resembled those of ancient Egypt. If the report had been true, it would have changed everything historians believed about the ancient history of North America. The article became the center of attention almost immediately. People wondered how Egyptian-style objects could possibly appear thousands of miles from Egypt. Others asked why such an important discovery had not already been announced by major scientific organizations. The newspaper claimed that Kinkaid had made the discovery while exploring the canyon, and that experts connected with the Smithsonian Institution were interested in investigating the site. For readers in 1909, it sounded like the beginning of one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in American history. But there was one problem. Outside of that newspaper report, very little could be confirmed. That single fact has fueled debate for more than 100 years. Who exactly was G.E. Kinkaid? Was he an experienced explorer? Did he truly make this discovery? Or had a remarkable newspaper story slowly become an American legend? Those questions bring us to the man himself. According to the newspaper, Kinkaid was exploring along the Colorado River when he noticed an opening high above the water. Curious, he climbed toward it and reportedly entered a cave unlike anything he had ever seen. The article described long hallways carved into solid rock. It spoke of rooms filled with ancient objects. It mentioned weapons, pottery, statues, and symbols that appeared unfamiliar to the explorer. Most surprising of all, The report claimed that some objects resembled artifacts from ancient Egypt. It was exactly the kind of story that captured people's imagination, even today, more than a century later. Millions of people have heard about the so-called Grand Canyon Egyptian mystery, but when modern historians began examining the story more carefully, they encountered an unexpected problem: very little information about G. Kinkaid could be verified through official historical records. Researchers searched census records, government documents, exploration reports, and historical archives. Some references appeared possible, others disappeared under closer examination. The deeper researchers looked, the more difficult it became to separate fact from legend. That uncertainty only made the story more fascinating. If the article had simply been proven false, interest would probably have disappeared long ago. Instead, it remained suspended between possibility and mystery. Meanwhile, the Grand Canyon itself continued to inspire questions. The canyon stretches for hundreds of miles. Many cliffs remain difficult to reach even today. Thousands of caves have been documented throughout the region, while others remain inaccessible because of dangerous terrain or protected cultural sites. Not every cave has been fully explored. That simple truth often encourages speculation. People naturally wonder what might still be hidden inside such an enormous landscape. Professional archaeologists, however, approach these questions very differently. They rely on excavations, documented evidence, careful measurements, laboratory testing, and peer-reviewed research. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So far, no verified archaeological excavation has confirmed the existence of the massive underground city described in the 1909 newspaper article. Yet that does not mean the story simply disappeared. Instead, it continued to grow. Books repeated it, magazine articles discussed it, television programs revisited it, internet forums debated every detail. Each generation added new questions while searching for old answers. Some writers believed government agencies had hidden the discovery. Others suggested that the newspaper had exaggerated ordinary archaeological findings into something far more dramatic. Still others argued that the entire article may have been written to entertain readers during an era when newspapers often published sensational frontier stories. Without new evidence, none of those ideas could be proven with certainty. That is why this mystery remains so unusual. The debate is not really about ancient Egypt, it is about evidence. Can one newspaper article stand against more than a century of archaeological research? Should we completely dismiss remarkable historical claims simply because they sound unbelievable? Or should every extraordinary story be investigated with an open mind, but also with careful skepticism? Those are the questions we will continue exploring. As our investigation moves forward, we will examine the original article itself, compare its claims with modern archaeology, and look at the historical facts that are often left out of popular discussions. Because sometimes the biggest mystery is not whether a hidden city existed. Sometimes the real mystery is why one newspaper story has survived for more than 100 years while leaving behind so few clear answers. And when we begin looking at what happened after the article was published, the story becomes even stranger. Several details surrounding the report have continued to puzzle researchers, and the next chapter of this investigation may reveal why this forgotten newspaper article has never truly disappeared from American history. When the story first appeared in the Arizona Gazette on April 5, 1909, it spread quickly across the American Southwest. At first, many readers accepted it as another exciting report from a land that still held countless unexplored places. The Grand Canyon had only recently become a national park, and much of its vast landscape remained difficult to reach. To many Americans, the idea that an explorer might discover something extraordinary inside its towering cliffs did not seem impossible. But as the days turned into weeks, something unusual happened. No other major newspaper followed up on the story. There were no official announcements from archaeologists, no public exhibition of artifacts, no photographs showing the underground chambers, no scientific reports describing the discovery. For a claim that could have changed the history of North America forever, the silence was remarkable. That silence became the first great mystery. The article described an explorer named Kinkaid as someone who had travelled through the canyon while studying the Colorado River. According to the newspaper, he discovered an opening high above the river that led into an enormous underground complex. Inside were long corridors, carefully carved rooms, statues, pottery, weapons and symbols, unlike anything he had seen before. The report even claimed that some objects resembled those found in ancient Egypt. If true, it would have been one of the most important archaeological discoveries in American history. Yet historians soon noticed something strange. The newspaper story contained many dramatic details, but very few details that could actually be verified. Researchers searched for maps that identified the exact location. None could be confirmed. They searched for official excavation records. None were found. They searched for reports describing the recovery of artifacts. Again, nothing appeared. This did not automatically prove the story was false. But it did raise an important question. If such an extraordinary discovery had really taken place, why was there almost no evidence left behind? As historians continued their investigation, they turned their attention to the explorer himself. Who exactly was G.E. Kinkaid? Surprisingly, finding a clear answer was not easy, unlike many well-known explorers of the early 20th century. Kinkaid left behind very little that could be connected to this remarkable story. Researchers found possible references to people with similar names, but no complete record that clearly matched the famous newspaper account. For some people, this only deepened the mystery. Others believed it suggested that the newspaper may have exaggerated the story, or perhaps even created a fictional explorer to make the article more exciting. Stories like this were not entirely uncommon during that period. In the early 1900s, newspapers competed fiercely for readers. A dramatic front-page story could sell thousands of extra copies. Frontier adventures, lost civilizations, hidden treasures, and mysterious discoveries fascinated the public. Some reports were completely accurate, others mixed facts with rumors, and a few blurred the line between journalism and entertainment. This made it difficult for modern historians to know exactly where the Kinkaid story belonged. As researchers examined the article more carefully, they noticed another interesting detail. The newspaper claimed that experts connected with the Smithsonian Institution were preparing to investigate the discovery. That statement immediately attracted attention. The Smithsonian was already one of America's most respected scientific institutions. If its researchers had truly been involved, there should have been official correspondence, field notes, photographs, or archaeological reports. Over the years, historians searched for those records. So far, none have been found. The Smithsonian has repeatedly stated that it has no evidence that such an expedition ever took place. To skeptics, this was powerful evidence that the newspaper story had little historical support. But believers reached a different conclusion. Some argued that important records had somehow disappeared. Others believed the expedition had been quietly abandoned before official documentation was completed. Still others suggested that valuable discoveries had been placed into private collections and never made public. These ideas remain popular on the internet today. However, no verified historical evidence has confirmed them. This brings us to another important part of the mystery. What have archaeologists actually discovered inside the Grand Canyon? The answer is far more interesting than many people realize. For thousands of years, Native American communities have lived in and around the canyon. Their history stretches back far beyond written American records. Archaeologists have documented ancient homes built into cliffs, storage rooms carved into rock, ceremonial sites, trails, and carefully preserved artifacts that reveal generations of human life. These discoveries are real. They tell the story of people who adapted to one of the most challenging landscapes in North America. Every excavation adds another piece to that history. But none of these discoveries have produced evidence of a giant underground city filled with Egyptian-style artifacts. Professional archaeologists continue to study the canyon using careful methods. Every artifact is recorded. Every excavation is documented. Every discovery is compared with other known archaeological sites. This careful process may not create exciting headlines, but it allows history to be built on evidence instead of speculation. Even so, the Grand Canyon still contains many places that remain difficult to explore. Steep cliffs, unstable rock formations, and protected cultural sites limit where researchers can safely work. Thousands of caves have been identified across the region. Many contain important archaeological materials. Others serve as protected habitats for wildlife. Some remain inaccessible because reaching them would be extremely dangerous. This simple fact often fuels public imagination. People naturally wonder what might still be hidden inside such an enormous landscape. It is a reasonable question, but archaeology depends on evidence, not possibilities. As interest in the 1909 article continued to grow, independent researchers began comparing the newspaper's descriptions with real archaeological discoveries from around the American Southwest. They found remarkable cliff dwellings, ancient roads, stone towers, large ceremonial buildings, trade networks that stretched hundreds of miles. These discoveries proved that ancient civilizations across North America achieved impressive engineering and architectural skills. Yet none matched the underground city described in the newspaper. Instead, the archaeological record tells a different story. It reveals diverse Native American cultures, each with its own traditions, beliefs, and building methods. Their achievements are extraordinary without needing connections to ancient Egypt. Even so, the legend refused to disappear. Books repeated the story. Television documentaries explored it. Radio programs debated it. Then the internet introduced it to an entirely new generation. Every few years, someone claimed to have found a forgotten clue, an old photograph, a mysterious map, an unusual carving, a hidden cave. Most of these claims were eventually traced back to the same newspaper article published in 1909. Again and again, the investigation returned to the beginning. One newspaper, one explorer, one extraordinary story, and almost no independent evidence. Yet perhaps the greatest reason this mystery has survived for more than a century is not because people believe every word of the article. It is because the story touches something much deeper. People want to believe there are still great discoveries waiting beneath the surface. They want to believe that history still has hidden chapters. That somewhere, beyond the maps and museums, another remarkable story remains undiscovered. History has surprised us before. New archaeological discoveries continue to reshape our understanding of the past. Entire cities have been uncovered beneath forests. Ancient civilizations have emerged from deserts. Long-forgotten settlements have been revealed through modern technology. Because of discoveries like these, curiosity remains alive. But curiosity alone is never enough. Evidence must always come first. As our investigation continues, we are about to examine the strongest arguments from both sides. Could the newspaper have been inspired by a real discovery that became exaggerated over time? Or was the entire story simply one of the most successful historical legends ever printed? The answers may not be as simple as either side believes. By now, one thing has become clear. The famous 1909 newspaper story did not simply disappear after it was published. In fact, something quite different happened. instead of fading into history. It slowly became one of America's most discussed archaeological mysteries. More than 100 years have passed since readers first saw the headline. During that time, thousands of articles, books, documentaries, podcasts, and online discussions have tried to answer the same question. Was there ever a hidden underground city inside the Grand Canyon? The answer depends on what evidence you choose to examine. For many historians, the case appears straightforward. They point out that no verified archaeological expedition has ever confirmed the discovery described in the newspaper. No museum has displayed the supposed Egyptian-style artifacts. No university excavation has uncovered the massive underground chambers described in the article. And no official government survey has identified the location of the mysterious cave. To them, the lack of evidence speaks loudly. If such a discovery had really been made, they argue, it would almost certainly have become one of the greatest archaeological finds in American history. Instead, nothing has ever been independently confirmed. That alone causes many researchers to reject the story. Yet others are not completely satisfied with that conclusion. Not because they believe every detail in the newspaper article, but because history has often surprised us before. Throughout the last century, archaeologists have uncovered remarkable discoveries that earlier generations believed were impossible. Ancient cities have emerged beneath thick jungles. Long-lost temples have appeared beneath desert sands. Entire civilizations have been identified only after modern technology revealed structures hidden below forests and farmland. Every one of those discoveries reminds us of an important lesson. History is never completely finished. There are still places waiting to be explored. But responsible archaeology follows one simple rule. Every discovery must be supported by evidence. That is where the Grand Canyon mystery continues to struggle. As interest in the story grew during the 20th century, independent researchers began searching for clues that might support the original newspaper report. Some focused on old maps. Others searched forgotten libraries. Some interviewed local residents whose families had lived near the canyon for generations. A few even attempted to identify the cave described in the article. Again and again, the search reached the same obstacle. No one could locate a site that matched the newspaper's description. This led to another interesting theory. Perhaps the article exaggerated a much smaller discovery. This idea is considered possible by some researchers. Imagine that an explorer found a natural cave containing ancient Native American artifacts. Such discoveries were not unusual during the early 20th century. A newspaper looking for an exciting headline might have expanded the story, adding dramatic details that captured readers' attention. If that happened, the original discovery could have been transformed into something much larger than reality. Unfortunately, there is no evidence proving this idea either. It remains one possible explanation among several. Another question often appears in discussions about the mystery. Why would anyone connect the Grand Canyon to ancient Egypt? The answer may have more to do with the world of 1909 than with archaeology itself. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, ancient Egypt fascinated the public. New discoveries filled newspapers almost every year. Archaeologists uncovered remarkable temples. Beautiful statues emerged from the sand. Ancient tombs revealed treasures unseen for thousands of years. People across America became deeply interested in Egyptian history. Books, museums, lectures, and newspaper stories reflected that excitement. Because Egypt captured the public imagination, writers often used Egyptian themes to make stories appear more mysterious and dramatic. This does not prove the Grand Canyon article was fictional, but it helps explain why Egyptian references would immediately capture readers' attention. Meanwhile, archaeologists continued making genuine discoveries throughout the American Southwest. They uncovered remarkable cliff dwellings built by ancestral Puebloan communities. They documented carefully planned villages. They found ancient trade routes connecting distant cultures across hundreds of miles. These discoveries demonstrated something extraordinary. The indigenous peoples of North America built complex societies long before European explorers arrived. Their achievements did not require outside civilizations to explain them. Today, archaeologists continue studying these sites with great respect because they represent the history of living Native American communities. That history deserves to be understood on its own terms. As the decades passed, another factor helped keep the Grand Canyon story alive: the Internet. Before the Internet, people usually encountered the mystery through books or magazine articles. Today, millions of people can discover the story within seconds. Videos, blogs, online forums, and social media posts continue sharing the original newspaper article. Some repeat the claims exactly as they appeared in 1909. Others add new details that never appeared in the original report. This creates a new challenge. Over time, stories naturally change. Each retelling can introduce small additions. A missing detail becomes an established fact. A possibility becomes a certainty. A rumor becomes accepted history. That is why historians always return to original sources whenever possible. The closer we remain to the earliest evidence, the more reliable our conclusions become. Even with careful research, however, one fascinating question remains. Why did this particular story survive when thousands of other sensational newspaper stories disappeared? Perhaps the answer lies in the Grand Canyon itself. Standing on its rim, it is easy to understand why people imagine hidden mysteries below. The canyon is almost impossible to fully experience from a single viewpoint. Its immense cliffs stretch for hundreds of miles. Its shadows conceal countless caves and narrow passages. Even today, many areas remain difficult to reach without specialized training. The landscape itself encourages curiosity. It reminds visitors that nature still contains places few people have ever seen. Curiosity is powerful. It inspires exploration. It drives scientific discovery. But it can also encourage speculation when evidence is limited. The challenge is learning the difference between the two. Good historians ask difficult questions. Good archaeologists test every idea against physical evidence. Neither approach destroys mystery. Instead, both bring us closer to the truth. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside this story. The mystery is not valuable because it proves an underground city existed. The mystery is valuable because it reminds us how easily history, journalism, legend, and public imagination can become intertwined. Separating them takes patience. It takes careful research. And sometimes, even after years of investigation, some questions remain unanswered. Yet our investigation is not finished. One final chapter still remains. Because while archaeologists continue examining the evidence, another question deserves our attention. What does modern science tell us about the places that inspired this legend? Could advanced mapping technology reveal something earlier explorers could never see? What have recent surveys actually discovered beneath the Grand Canyon? And perhaps most importantly, after more than 100 years of debate, what should we truly believe about America's most famous hidden city story? That is where our investigation leads next. After following this story from its beginning in 1909, we arrive at the most important question of all. What should we actually believe? Was there really a hidden underground city inside the Grand Canyon? Did an explorer named Kinkaid uncover one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in American history? Or did one remarkable newspaper article slowly become one of America's greatest historical legends? The honest answer is both simple and complicated, based on everything historians and archaeologists know today. There is no verified evidence that a giant underground city filled with Egyptian-style artifacts has ever been discovered inside the Grand Canyon. No confirmed excavation supports the story. No verified collection of artifacts has been presented for scientific study. No university research has confirmed the existence of the chambers described in the newspaper. No official archaeological survey has located the site. Those are the facts supported by today's evidence. But the story does not end there. History rarely offers perfect answers. Sometimes the most interesting part of an investigation is understanding why a mystery continues to survive even after more than 100 years. The Grand Canyon itself is part of that answer. Few places on Earth inspire the imagination quite like this landscape. Standing on its edge, visitors look across miles of towering cliffs, narrow side canyons, hidden caves, and rock formations carved by millions of years of natural forces. The canyon reminds us how much of nature remains beyond easy human reach, even with helicopters, drones, satellite imagery, and advanced mapping technology. Researchers continue learning new things about this enormous landscape. Scientists regularly discover new caves. Geologists continue studying ancient rock layers. Archaeologists carefully document sites that reveal how indigenous communities lived, travelled, hunted, traded, and built homes across the region for thousands of years. These discoveries are real, and they are remarkable. In many ways, the true history of the Grand Canyon is already more fascinating than fiction. Long before modern roads crossed northern Arizona, Native American communities understood this landscape in ways early explorers never could. The canyon was never an empty wilderness waiting to be discovered. It was a homeland. Its trails connected communities. Its caves sometimes provided shelter or storage. Its springs supported life in an otherwise difficult environment. Its cliffs carried stories passed from one generation to another. Modern archaeology continues to reveal just how rich that history truly is. Each carefully documented excavation adds another piece to a much larger picture. Instead of searching for evidence that supports exciting legends, archaeologists ask careful questions. Who lived here? How did they survive? What tools did they make? How did they trade with neighbouring communities? What changes took place over hundreds or even thousands of years? These questions may sound less dramatic than stories about hidden civilizations, but they produce answers supported by real evidence. That is what makes archaeology different from mythology. One follows physical proof, the other follows stories. Both have value, but they serve different purposes. The mystery surrounding the 1909 newspaper article teaches another important lesson. Newspapers are valuable historical sources. They preserve events, opinions, and observations from the time they were written, but newspapers are not always perfect records of history. Especially during the early 20th century, newspapers often competed for readers by publishing dramatic stories that captured public attention. Some reports proved completely accurate. Others contained honest mistakes. Some relied on rumours. And occasionally, sensational stories appeared that could not later be confirmed. That is why historians never depend upon a single source. Instead, they compare newspapers with government records, personal letters, photographs, maps, museum collections, archaeological reports, and scientific studies. When many independent sources agree, confidence grows. When only one dramatic source exists, historians become much more cautious. The Grand Canyon mystery reminds us why that process matters. At the same time, curiosity should never disappear. History advances because people continue asking thoughtful questions. Every major archaeological discovery began with someone wondering whether there might be more to learn. Ancient Troy was once dismissed as legend before archaeologists uncovered evidence of the city. The magnificent ruins of Machu Picchu remained unknown to the outside world until the early 20th century. Across the globe, new discoveries continue changing what historians understand about ancient civilizations. These examples teach an important lesson. Curiosity is essential, but curiosity must walk beside evidence. One without the other can easily lead us in the wrong direction. Today, modern technology gives archaeologists tools that earlier generations could only imagine. Ground-penetrating radar allows researchers to detect structures beneath the surface without digging. Laser mapping systems can reveal ancient roads hidden beneath dense forests. High-resolution satellite images help identify forgotten settlements across enormous landscapes. Digital scanning creates detailed three-dimensional maps of archaeological sites. These technologies continue transforming our understanding of history. If an extraordinary underground city truly existed inside the Grand Canyon, modern researchers would almost certainly search for physical evidence using these methods. So far, none has confirmed the discovery described in the famous newspaper article. For many researchers, that remains the strongest reason to doubt the story. Still, there is another reason why people continue returning to this mystery. It represents something deeply human. We all want to believe that the world still holds hidden wonders, that somewhere beyond the horizon lies another forgotten chapter waiting to be discovered. That feeling has inspired explorers for centuries. It encouraged scientists to climb mountains, cross oceans, study deserts, and enter caves. Without curiosity, many genuine discoveries would never have happened. The challenge is remembering that true discovery requires patience. Real archaeology rarely happens overnight. Most breakthroughs come after years of careful research, repeated testing, and collaboration between experts from many different fields. The truth often grows slowly. That may not create dramatic headlines, but it creates lasting knowledge. Perhaps that is the greatest difference between legend and history. Legends often appear suddenly. History reveals itself one piece at a time. As we reach the end of this investigation, we can finally answer the question that began our journey. Did an explorer truly discover a hidden Egyptian city beneath the Grand Canyon? Based on everything currently known, there is no verified evidence supporting that claim. The famous 1909 newspaper story remains an unconfirmed historical report. It continues to inspire debate because it asks fascinating questions, not because it provides proven answers. And maybe that is why the story has survived for more than a century. It reminds us that history is not simply a collection of dates and names. It is an ongoing search for truth. Sometimes that search confirms remarkable discoveries. Sometimes it corrects old mistakes. And sometimes it leaves us with mysteries that continue challenging every new generation. Whether you believe the newspaper article was an honest misunderstanding, an exaggerated report, or simply an unforgettable legend, one fact remains beyond dispute. The Grand Canyon still stands as one of America's greatest natural and historical treasures. Its cliffs continue preserving evidence of ancient cultures. Its caves continue protecting pieces of the past. Its landscape continues inspiring explorers, scientists, historians, and dreamers alike. Perhaps the greatest hidden city was never buried beneath the canyon at all. Perhaps it exists in the stories people continue telling, the questions they continue asking, and the determination to understand the past through evidence rather than assumption. That search never truly ends, and neither does history. If you enjoy exploring forgotten chapters of America's past through careful research and honest investigation, consider subscribing to the Vertical Archive. Every week, we uncover another mystery, compare the evidence, and separate historical fact from enduring legend. Until our next investigation, remember this: the greatest discoveries are not always the ones that prove us right. Sometimes, they are the ones that teach us how to keep asking better questions.